We shall discuss today's lesson. Today's lesson, uh, we'll discuss about scenario analysis. The concept of scenario analysis is something you did in accounting, and today we shall see how you do this one in Excel. So in the last book that I sent, there was this part you're supposed to go through about, we did our last discussion about project evaluation, and we noticed that to evaluate a project, there are several techniques you can use. It includes the payback period, discounted payback period, net present value, the internal rate of return, profitability index. So after this, now today we shall discuss about this scenario analysis. Scenario analysis. So usually we say from your accounting classes, in some situations you require to evaluate several options. You are given several models, you are given different scenarios. You're supposed to use these scenarios to decide which option best suit the business needs. I realize there's an echo, just a minute. So let's check whether it is okay now. Yes, I feel like it has been fixed. So as we wait for the technician to check the problem with sound, so I was saying about this scenario analysis. As a business head, sometimes you need to confirm, consider several options before you make a certain judgment. So here under the scenario analysis, we are going to check a number of things. Number one, the scenario manager. We're going to run about the break-even analysis, which we are going to use the gold sheet in Excel. And finally, we'll do about sensitivity analysis using the data tables. Then today, we shall also attempt a question in the past paper, if the time allows us. So let's start with the scenario manager. In Excel, there is a tool that you'll find under the what if analysis. That is, when you click on data, you will find what if analysis. And after this, you will find the scenario manager, the goal seek, and the data tables. So the data that we are going to use to learn about the scenario analysis, I'll send this data, so you download it, then you use this data to work out. So just a minute. Once you get this data, then you download, then you work on this data. So before the data is loaded, so you just need to check here. One, we have said that as a business head, it is important to know the different scenarios of your future projects. Based on the scenarios, the business manager will make decisions, and is supposed to make decision to know which project to undertake. So in our case, we are given a scenario where the expected cash inflow is this amount. Then we are given the salaries and bonuses, construction, the traveling cost, the raw material. All these are expenses. We're supposed to compute the total expenses, total profit, and the profit percentage. So let me share that data. So I've sent one copy there on the chat. The other copy, I'm sending it on WhatsApp. So just access it from WhatsApp. So you get the copy, download it from WhatsApp. Then from there you run we run this. So this was the question, and the question here, we are told we expected the cash inflow for a project of this, then which is given in a particular cell. The total expense is supposed to be computed, which comprises of all fixed variables, expenses, the total cost. Then you're supposed to compute this one using the formulas. So first, before we run that data that is in the book, we shall have the following options. The current case, this was the data. That is the current situation. And you are supposed to run the two options given here. The first option, the salaries and bonuses were to be reduced to 500,000. Traveling costs reduced to 50,000. The operating cost, 45,000. Project license 2, reduced to that. And the second option had its own option, that is preferences. So now we are told we are supposed to run the scenario analysis and choose out of the two options plus the current option that you are given, which is the best option to choose. So when you are given such data, you can write this option somewhere. Just write this option somewhere. Then once you run this, then you go and run the scenarios given on that booklet, believing that you have the booklet with you. So the first scenario here, you are told the project license was estimated to be 15 million. Then the raw material increased by 2.5. You're supposed to compute to see 2.5 will be how much. Then other expenses will decrease by 50,000. That is the first scenario. The second scenario, too, we are given several options here: the labor, the daily wages, operating cost, and the project cost. Then, how do you run this scenario? So I hope you have typed this. So to run this analysis, you said you click on data, then you select the what if analysis. Then from there, you can choose the scenario manager. So if you have any scenario, then it will actually show the scenarios. But now you don't have, so you can delete the two scenarios that appears there. Just click delete. Because in that data, there are some two scenarios that were run. Then you want to add new options. So you click on add button. When you click add, you're supposed to indicate your scenario names. Like the first one here, I'll give it the name option 1. So option 1, we were given several cells to change. That in option 1s, which are the changing cells. So you have to indicate the cells that will be changing. To obtain the first option, we will change the salaries and bonuses, comma. Then we will change the traveling cost, comma. We will change the operating cost, and we also change the project license. So these are the options that we have projected to change. And we are changing those options to what? Remember that before you run this, you have already computed the total expenses using the right formula, the total profit, and the percentage profit. You have already computed that. So that is how do you compute that? The formulas, you need to set those formulas. Like to get the total cost, you sum. To get the total expenses, you sum all the expenses given above here. To get the total profit, you take the expected cash inflow minus the total expenses. Then to get the profit, percentage profit, so you're supposed to get the profit divided by the expected cash inflow. Then you convert this one into percentage. So that is how you are supposed to compute those total expenses, total profit, and percentage profit. Then from there, you can go ahead and run now the scenario analysis. You click scenario manager, you click add, then you set the first option. The first option here, you will just name it option 1. So option 1, we will obtain option 1 by changing cells, the cells containing the salaries and bonuses. Then you put a comma. The cells containing traveling costs, comma, cells containing operating cost, and cells containing the project license. That is the first option. Then you click OK. So we are changing this to what? So if it is the first cell, which here the salaries and bonuses, it was 1.5, it is changing to 500,000. If it is traveling cost from 750, it is now changing to 50,000. So if it is C9, which we have operating cost from 545, it is now changing to 450,000. And the last one here, that is a project license from 1 million, changing to 900,000. That is the first option. So once you set the first option, you click OK. So it will ask you, or you click Add, it will ask you to set the second option. So our second option here, we are given option 2, which will give it the name option 2. Option 2, by changing now different cells, not those one, because in the second option, the first option you are changing is the raw material. The raw material did not change much, just remain the same. Then the second option, we are changing the labor, daily wages. And the third option, we are changing the other expenses. So they are changing to what? The first one remains the same, second one remains the same, but the third one changes to 200. So you type there, changes to 200,000. Then finally you have the two options, you click OK. So now Excel will give you the two options here that you have set. First option and the second option. So once you get the two options, you're supposed to give a summary. A summary of your scenarios. So you click on the summary here. And in the summary, you have to indicate the results. That in the summary, you include the total expenses for all the three scenarios. Then, comma, you have to include the total profits for all the three, including the current case and the two options. Then the third one, you have to include the profit, percentage profit. Then from there, you click OK. What Excel will do, it will compute the scenarios here. As you can see, it will produce the scenario summary, whereby it will give you the option of the current values that you already have. It will also give you the options of the two options we have set. That in this case, the first, this one represent the values you are given in our cells. And in the first option, option 1, you are able to get the expenses that is lower than the current situation. The third option, the expenses become even higher. So meaning that the percentage profit of the second option was the best suited. So that is in case you are asked which option should the business head choose. So here we can say that we will choose the second option. Why? Because it has given us the higher profit. So meaning after computing this, you can even copy this data that shows here that we are supposed to represent the values. Here we have the total expenses is what is represented here. Total expenses. Then the other one represents what? Represents the total profit. So you have here total profit. Then the third one here represents the profit percentage. So profit percentage over here. So for the two options, those are the values that we obtain. Then we can say that option 2 is preferred. Why? Because it gives us the highest profit percentage profit. So I'll repeat again. First I'll delete this. I'll delete any other scenario summary. So this is what our base data was all about. That the company expected a cash inflow of this amount. That is what it expected as the revenue. But we have a number of expenses given here. We have all these expenses given here. And to get the total expenses, you put a formula that you add these values up. So don't look at that question. Don't look at the figures in the question. I'm using different figures because the figures in the book were a bit exaggerated, a bit more exaggerated. Yeah? They were a bit more compared to now, because like we are told the expenses did go up with a very high figure. So I've decided to come up with two more options, two different options. So in this case, the option 1, you are told to give or to give out that the salaries and the bonuses were given at the current year. So the business is trying to come up with the best way, the best option, whereby it you have the highest profit margin. And the two, you are to evaluate between the two options, option 1 and option 2. So don't worry about the figures. What you should worry about is how to run this. So, and because you need to compute the totals, you get the total profits. How do you get the total profits? You take the total expenses, that is the total, the revenue, the cash inflow minus the expenses, which you get this. Then from there, you get the percentage profit, whereby the percentage profit will be given by the profit divided by the total revenue. So from there, now we can run our scenario. So we said you click on the data, then you select the what if, then you select scenario manager. You'll find that because we have already run the two options there previously, we will have to delete these options, option 1 and option 2. So sometimes could be given scenarios instead of the options. Sometimes the examiner will tell you that these are our scenarios. So you're given scenario 1, and the second one, scenario 2. So we have the two scenarios, scenario 1 and scenario 2. So in the first scenario, the projected change was that the salaries and bonuses were expected to change. So that is, you remove the ghost workers and such, and finally you get that the salaries and wages should amount to this. The traveling cost, we have to reduce some of the expenses to reduce our traveling cost to this, and this one also reduced the operating cost reduced to this, and the project license actually did reduce by this. So then again, another option, we are given another alternative whereby you are given the option of changing this, that the raw material, we can reduce this figure a bit, like we say 550. So instead of having 600, we can reduce it a bit to 550,000. So it was reduced to that. These one retain the same figure. And you are told to run the scenario analysis to choose the best option that would favor the business. So then you say, the procedure, you click on data, select the what if analysis, Then you click the scenario manager. Then from there, you'll click add to add your two scenarios. The first one, you just call it scenario 1. So you type there scenario 1. What about this scenario? Scenario 1. So scenario 1, we will obtain scenario 1 by changing the values here. Changing which specific cells? By changing 1, salaries and bonuses, comma. Then we change the traveling cost, comma. We change the operating cost. And finally, we change the project license. Those are the changing cells. So you select all the changing cells. Then finally, once you select the changing cells, you move on to the next part. And that is, these cells are changing to what? When you click OK, it will prompt you to enter the values for the first scenario. That the first scenario, the project salaries and bonuses are changing to 500,000. The traveling cost is changing from 750 to 50,000. Then we have the operating cost. The operating cost is changing from 545 to 450,000. Finally, the project license reduced by 100, so we have 900,000. 900,000. So that is the first option. And since we have another option, we will not click OK. Instead, we just click add so that you can add the next option. So that is scenario 2. In our second scenario, then the changing cells changed, because in this second option, we are changing the raw material at this cell. Then comma, we are changing the labor daily wages. Then again, we are changing the other expenses. And they are changing to what? So the raw material cost was changing to 550,000. The second option is changing the labor and wages, which was changing 400,000. That was not really changing. Then the last one is the other expenses was 300,000. Now changing to 200,000. So those are our two options. So once you set the two options, then you click OK. So when you click OK now, we are supposed to produce a summary of the scenario summary, and you click on summary here so that you can compute those scenarios. You can see that now the Excel will have to confirm that after running the two scenarios, you're supposed to give out the results. The first result is the total expenses. So then in our report, we should also have the total profit, and we should also have the profit percentage. So those are the figures that you expect that should come together with our report. So once you set the two scenarios, you click OK, and then the computer will do the rest. It will just go and cross-check the options. See the current option that is giving us a profit of 28.73. The second option, that is scenario whereby we change some values, giving us a very higher profit compared with the other two. So that is how you run the scenario analysis. Remember that in the case of such a question, then the examiner really need to, your data to be computed in one worksheet. So that means after having this data, you can copy this worksheet and now put it, yes, you can have that data. I've just copied this data, or you can even copy everything. You can copy from here to here. So once you copy, then you move to your current worksheet where the data was, and you can decide to paste it somewhere. Just paste that data, paste there. So it will come together with the scenario analysis to show you the two options. And then the question was asking which option is the best according to this chart. Then from there you can choose. The option was, so you can choose the best option. So that is how you run the scenario analysis. So hope you are going to proceed and run that. In the booklet. You are given the procedure of doing that. And run even more than 2 scenarios, 3, 4, 5 scenarios at once, and to give you a report. So that is running the scenario analysis. We use the scenario manager. So our next discussion, we're going to check on the break-even analysis. The break-even analysis. Break-even analysis. So in your previous units, the break-even is something you learned in finance, and you are told that break-even point is where our total cost equals to our total revenue. Our total cost equals to our total revenue. That is, we can say that this is a situation whereby no profit or no loss is experienced. Specifically, no loss. So that is if you are given a certain piece of data, or you invest your money in a particular company, you invested like 10,000, and for the first return, the project returned like 2,000. So which means that the project have not yet paid back. So we can say that we are actually making losses in that particular project. So, but now at a given time, the business would like to break even. And by doing this, the business must estimate their revenue and expenditure for the year, quarter, or a month to know their break-even point. So once they do this, then they have to identify the revenue equals to total cost, because the revenue minus total cost is supposed to be equal to 0. So normally in economics, we call the break-even point the point of indifference. That is, this analysis informs the management of the minimum revenue required to cover all its expenses. So the calculation of break-even point is different from the industry or those different industries. And you'll find that in Excel, it is possible to do the same. But to break even point in Excel, apart from using the formulas you have been using there, the break even point, the total fixed cost, so contribution per unit, minus the variable cost per. So that is, we get these sometimes by using the formula. We take the break even point as total fixed cost divided by contribution margin ratios. So where contribution margin ratio is contribution per unit, selling price per unit. So now we are going to check this, but now you have to use a specific piece of data. In Excel, the break even is done using the goal seek function. So, and here you want to check this function that we are referring to as goal seek and how it works in our computation. So let's get that. I had it somewhere here. So this is the data that we are going to use. So we are going to type this data again. I'll send you that data that you're going to share. So just a minute, I'm looking for that data where I saved that data. So I think I've got the file. So in Excel, we said the goal seek is normally achieved by the function or the break even is achieved by this function which we call the goal seek. And the goal seek in Excel is a hot if analysis tool that calculates the value of the input set variable with respect to the desired outcome. In other words, the tool helps to answer the questions: what should be the value of the input in order to attain a given output? So that is what you're going to learn or to use here. I'll prefer that we use specific data that I would like you to type because it's not wide. So we have the data about the cost. Then later you can go and attempt those questions on your own. All those questions are about the goal seek. So before we really get the data, I have data already in Excel. So you can have it, just type that data. So since I don't really have this data, you'll be required to key in the data. It's not white. You can key in this data and then you work together instead of having to look for it. So the data that I want us to use is a specific data values where the company was given or had the revenue of a particular amount. And you are expected to know or to compute when this value will result to a zero profit, When do you return to a zero profit? So let's use this data. So, and the data is like, it's like that. So we have that data. So now I believe you have the data now. So this data was like this. We are given projects. We are given projects, 3 projects. Each project was returning a revenue of a specific amount, except project C, which was not defined. That is, the project C was not actually defined how much it should return. Then we are given the contribution here in percentage. You're supposed to calculate the percentage. So, and to get the percentage, we will say that equals to multiply by, so that means 20% of, and you get the value here. So once you get the value, then you copy down this formula, up sell. Yeah. Notice that it will give you zeros here because we don't have the value or the revenue for product C. That is what you are looking up for. So when you're running the goal seek, then these parameters should always guide us. The parameters that should guide us when running this, number one, we say in goal seek or the goal seek function, you have to set up the set cell. So in this case, enter a reference of the formula to be resolved. Then to value in this box, you enter the desired output to be achieved. And by changing cell, then this box, you enter the reference of the output. That is the cell variable to be adjusted. So we want to run this one and get out those parameters, right? So we will go back to our Excel worksheet. Then from there, we have to compute the total here. So how do you get the total? You just type sum. So the sum of these numbers, therefore the sum of all the total contribution is 90,000. So this product, you are given the percentage rate of return. That is the percentage contribution. And the revenue, not yet. So we are now asked to give the value that should be given here so that the target value, which is this one here, comes and that is becomes 150. If we are changing the value in this cell, we want to obtain which value was in this cell. So what do? You just click on data, then you proceed to what you analysis, goal seek. So once you click the goal seek, function will appear on the screen, and it will bring those the parameters I was referring to. That is set cells. This box, you enter the reference of the formula to be resolved. What are we resolving? So in this one, we are trying to resolve this amount that was given here. To value, we are typing to value. That is from 90 to 150. So we just type 150. Then by changing which cell, the cell project C. Then finally, once you finish, you click OK. So once you have set everything, remember that the formula must be embedded in your chart. You say equals to what is goal seek. Then you set the values to cell, to value, set cell. So we have said that the set value is the reference of the formula to be resolved. We want to resolve 90,000. That is in the same step. We want to resolve this 900,000 to value of 150. And by changing which cell? So by changing the cell in the revenue for product B, then you'll be able to attain that is 150 instead of 90,000. So once you do this, then you click OK. Excel will compute until you find the even point, the break-even point that will give us that amount. That is, in order to make a target contribution of 150,000, we need to have product C being sold at 400,000. So that is how we run this analysis. That is, we use no traces of the formula will be found. But if anyone click What-If, then scenario manager is supposed to access your is supposed to access your details. So let's proceed. After this, probably we are going to run this. The other question about the policy. So that data, I think you can have it. Then you want to run again as the last one. So I hope you have downloaded that file. So we can now run it together. And right now, I want us to use a different set of data. The file I have sent you has sheet 1 and sheet 2. I was trying to send it through the WhatsApp. It seemed like WhatsApp. I'll also send the file in WhatsApp. Just download the file. Now we are going to use a different approach. So in that data, I'm going to open. So it's about just a minute. The break even here. So the first one, you have just achieved this. You were able to achieve this. That we need to know how much we are supposed to get as the revenue, or to set as our incoming revenue for our product C, so that we can get the target value of profit, or the target profit value of the total contribution of 150. And we said, for this to happen, you must have already entered the formulas here. The goal seek will not work without formulas. If you don't have the formulas, the goal seek will always tell you that you don't have the formulas. You must have the formulas. That this 90,000 is contribution of the two products. The contribution of the two products, that is what is leading to 90,000. Considering that the second product C was given a contribution of 15%, though we are not given what was the revenue. So meaning that we need to know the revenue for product C, that will make our total contribution to become 150,000. So there we said that we just insert the function what if, and we select the goal seek. Under the goal seek, the set value is the cell that you want to change. That is this cell here. So the cell has 90,000, but we are projecting it to achieve a value of 150,000. 150,000. Then by changing which cell? By changing the cell in C. So once you click OK, then computer will generate and give you the break-even point. So as you change this one to 150,000, and this one will give a value. Then you save. So the second option, you can click on sheet 2. You'll get a different case here. So in this case, we are told that under the particulars, we are given the unit produced, and we are given the variable cost per unit. We are also given the fixed cost per unit. So this amount of total cost was not given. That is, all the values down here were not given. So you can delete those values. If you have the worksheet with you, just delete those values. So with this, then to get the total cost, how do you get the total cost? We use a simple formula, the formula I've indicated there, that to get the total cost, you take the unit, start with the bracket, the unit produced multiplied by multiplied by the cost per unit. Cost per unit. But now, since we are given a fixed cost per unit, you have to consider that. And how do you consider that? That you'll add from this, you'll add again the fixed cost per unit multiplied by the amount sold. Multiplied by so when we take the values, we take the B2, B3, and B4, multiply by what? Multiply by B2 there. Just wait a minute. In the let's see. So I think that you can see our formula. That is, we have to enter in the formula in that worksheet to obtain the values given. The formula is the one I've copied here, which we said that to get this, you're supposed to insert a formula that will multiply the cell unit cost, that is, multiply the unit cost, then by what? By cost per unit. Then we add that variable cost per unit. We'll add so we'll add again the cost, the fixed cost per unit, and multiply by the unit produced. So that is a formula that you're supposed to have compute the total cost. By doing so, it will give you the total cost of 70,000. The selling price is not provided, but the revenue is given. And the revenue you obtain it by having the formula here. That to get the revenue, you should just take so you take the values of V2, that is the unit cost, multiply by profit, selling price. So once you do this, you press enter, it will give you a revenue of 0. Why? Because our selling price is 0. And finally, you're supposed to get the profit. How do you generate the profit? You say the profit you take the revenue, then you minus the total cost. Minus the total cost. That is the revenue minus the total. And since the revenue was 0, when you minus with the total cost, you become minus 7,000. That is negative 7,000. Now here, the business owner wants to know the amount of money he's supposed to set as the selling price to break even by a situation whereby the profit will become or will be equal to zero. So I hope you did this and you learned about this, that whenever you are running this goal seek, what do we say about them? Let's see what we can say about this goal seek. After and these are parameters and our theory about the goal seek, that the revenue minus the total cost should be equal to zero. So the two approach of this running the break even, you can use the method of the formula that you have been using previously, where you say the total fixed cost divided by cost contribution per unit. So here we are using the Excel to run under the HOTIV analysis, and that is what we have just done. So you run the Excel and you set up those values. So how do you set the values? Now here you are told we want to know the selling price that will break even. To break even, it means our profit here will be zero. So meaning now you proceed with the function data. What if you select goal seek? The goal seek, the set cell still remain the cell with, that is the cell. Then to value what? We are changing profit to zero by changing the cell of the selling price. Then finally, once you set this, you click OK. And Excel will have to compute and to give you that you need to set 14, and you can conclude with that statement that a profit or a value of 14 was set to the selling price to achieve 150 at the end. So, and this is our argument. You will find it somewhere in this worksheet. All those are questions that you can go and attempt about the goal seek, and their solution have been provided there. So then the company is supposed to sell an item at that amount to break even, break the even. So that is running the goals. That's how you run the goals. You can try again and again on your own, and you get to master. So hope you have seen that. With the book I send you, we have all that content there. The explanation of the goal seek. So, and after the goal seek, you'll find the break-even analysis in Excel, follow several examples here. You are given example 1, example 2, and every example you're supposed to get at which point should you break the even, using the same procedure. You run the procedure to accept the or to gain that particular vary. That is working with the break-even functions. And the question that we are dealing with is this question here, whereby we are told that a company has prepared 58 electronics devices. It has incurred a total fixed cost of $8 per unit, and the variable cost of 6, which you can see in our table. The company does not know which or what price they would set for these 58 devices to achieve the break-even point. So, and hence, we have to use the break-even analysis to achieve this. So once you run this, then you are supposed to produce the value of that selling price, which we have found is 14. Therefore, this company hence has to sell electronic at $14 per unit to achieve the break-even point. So the work to do is just go and attempt all those exercises. Please try attempt most of them. So our next discussion, you're going to check on our last part today. After this is sensitivity analysis. And sensitivity analysis is another concept that you did in capital budgeting. So here, we will actually check what we call the sensitivity analysis. It is something maybe you have ever experienced somewhere being used, but unless you are keen to cross-check, then it is another Excel function that is very powerful. It helps us to get or to compare, sometimes to know the risky projects that maybe you can engage into. And by running this sensitivity analysis, then you'll be able to compare the options and you'll be able to identify the risk so that you don't find yourself maybe engaging in a project that is risky. So here, we have a number of options to use. I don't know why this one is jumping. To do sensitivity analysis in Excel, we use the function called data tables. And in Excel, sensitivity analysis helps us to study the uncertainty. And in this model, especially in Excel, it is useful in finance for modeling share prices or valuation sensitivity to assumption like growth rate and the cost of capital. So we will find that in Excel, we have the data tables, which is actually the tool that we use to do this. When you click on data, you'll find the what if analysis and you'll find the data table. So these data tables have two options. We have the two options of data tables. That a data table has either two-way or one-way. We have two-way or one-way data table. So we have different types of data tables. That is one variable or two variables. Sometimes we call it one-way or two-way data table. A data table being one-way is different from the regular table that we insert in Excel, because in data table, it actually checks the data that you are using. In case you are given the growth rate, is able to identify without using the formula. So we'll start with one way or one variable data table, whereby this is created to study how changes in one input of a formula causes the change in output. So a one variable data table can be either row-oriented or column-oriented. It implies that all possible values that an input can assume are listed in either single row or a single column. So we have a piece of data that has been shown in the images below here that shows the growth rate, the revenue for a particular year, and we are supposed to compute the projected revenue for the year to come. That is, here we have year 2019. So we are going to use a specific data here. Someone was asking whether we can do the graph. Don't worry, come to run those graphs later. So let me close this and this. Then I want to have this data that shows sensitivity analysis. So let me take this data. Download that data. I'll send the data in the group. That data is like the one I've opened there. I want to make our work easier. Just have the data. Once you download the data, what do you do? We are given those, confirm whether the data has those values. So here we have a situation whereby a particular company had this as the revenue for their year 2018. Then it had this as the revenue for that year with a growth rate of 12%. Then how do we get the value of this? How do we get the projected? You can delete that value. I already put the formula there. You're supposed to put the formula that will allow you to get that value of the projected growth rate. So how do you set? You say that it is equal to the revenue plus the growth, where the growth will be, again, revenue multiplied by this 12%. With 12% to get the growth rate. Yeah, 12%. I don't know why some people are being left behind, because I have prepared everything for you. I've sent you the document, I have sent it in WhatsApp. Why are you being left behind? I've sent it. Maybe there's a problem with the check. Just a minute. If you have the document, you can again share it to those people who are not maybe in WhatsApp. Just share to them. Just share that this will be on the same level. Let's see. Let me share again. So you download the formula. We said that to set up the formula here, we have to put the formula that will give us the projected growth rate. We said first you delete the value that was here. Now we are given 12% as the minimum expected growth rate. So meaning that you have to compute the growth, you add together with the revenue to get the projected. So we say equals to the revenue plus the growth. What is the growth? The growth was this amount of revenue multiplied by the growth rate, which is 12%. You take this, then you get the amount. That is 16,800. I hope that one is clear. Now, the next situation is where you are told that there are several growth rates that you are given. If the growth rate is 12% and it gives us this amount 16,800, what about if the growth rate was 12.5 or it was 13.5 or it was 14 and so on? So now you are supposed to compute this to get the growth rate of the other options. So here you are told that the growth, the first option was the growth was 12%. And if it was 12%, then the revenue that you got projection of 2019 equals to, you just put the equal sign, then you say is equal to B form. Just pick the B form from there. Then, okay. So it will give, so it will just pick that value and bring it down here. So once you achieve that, then you want to compute the others, 12.5, so you type 12.5%. They proceed down that way, you can increase the number of decimals here. They proceed downward. The other one is 13.5. So they can type 13.5%. And then you select the 2 because we have already set the trend and drag down up to 2022. Up to 2022. So those are the growth rates, the pattern of our growth rate for this. Now, if you are to compute this one using a formula, then the formula we embedded in our first function could be used to copy down this. That is the formula that we used to get this can now be used to copy down the values vertically. So we said that our formula here will read how it will read the revenue, and the revenue should not shift, should not change. So that means you have to press F on the keyboard to make it absolute. Then plus the growth rate, where the growth rate will be equal to the same value, which is still absolute. You press F4. Then you multiply by the growth rate, whereby the growth rate is 12%. So if you close the bracket and you press enter, it will give you that value. But for that 12%, you are to use the 12% that is indicated here. So that once you get this, you can copy this formula down in your worksheets to achieve the other values. So meaning that you can use a function to do the same, but in that function you have to identify that certain cells will be shifting while others will remain constant. So the alternative can be done using the data tables. And I want us to copy this piece of data again. Then we can practice here, running the same using the data tables. The only thing we are going to remove is this revenues. Just I write those revenues. So I hope you have copied that data. Just copy and paste, then you remove the values of revenue. And we repeat the same procedure. First, you pick the revenue for the minimum expected growth rate of 12, So to say is equal to that cell there. You just click and it will give you the value of that cell. Now from here, we're supposed to write the data. Write this data. Then once you highlight the data, then you move through the process of data table, one-way data table. Someone is getting different figures when you copy down. And they have to give you different figures because in the formula here, you don't just type the formula and copy down. You have to ensure that certain cell has been fixed and not moving. So, and those cells are indicated using the So you can try to rectify that. Ensure you can just write somewhere that formula, and then you use that formula to run your work. So I want us to use these data tables. We said the first option is to highlight your data. Then from the data tab, we're going to choose under what is analysis about the data tables. When you select data table, it will be so much easier using the data table than the formula, because here you don't need to set any formula. In this data table, you either represent the values in columns or in rows. In our case, the growth rate was put in the column. So meaning that we are supposed to set under this column, because we were told that it's either a row oriented or column oriented. So the input value is the value that help us to attain this amount of 168. That is the input value. Then the row input, we don't have any row input as per now. Just highlight this. Then finally, click OK. So it automatically generates the revenues. So the only thing that you'll notice about the data tables is that any computation that was done in the formula, it will always show the formula above here. But in this case, when you click on these values, you won't find the formula here. It will only give you the array, because this function just need to insert the value and it generates automatically. So when you click on this, something you cannot do with the data tables, that the minute you run the data table, it will give you a reference where you just pick the value of the cell from here and gives you the output. So, and all these are various explanations of the same. So, one thing you cannot do when you generate the data table, you cannot use the delete key, because if you try to press delete, it will always produce such an error. The same case, you cannot use the backspace command, because of the same, it will use those it will use those functions. So in this function that we had here, it was row, it was column oriented. Sometimes can also be row oriented. So can be row oriented or column oriented. In this case, it was column oriented. The values we got here, if it is row oriented, itakuwa how? So I want to make another copy in the next worksheet. This is my copy. And in this copy, now I'm going to copy that data oriented in a row form, which we did in another class there. That is, we said, if these values are not seen, they have the growth rate,
recording in progress.
So I've copied the first piece of data in the next worksheet. Now I want to copy this, but I cannot copy these with values, or I can also copy them with values, then I will change. I'll just highlight this, copy, then I move to the next worksheet. Right click on the same option, but now I will say paste transpose. We can start somewhere from here. So once you copy, then you want to paste this in a new cell. So let's close this. Want to paste this one, you just copy, then you move to the next worksheet. Then you can post transpose. So just right click there. So the pasting transpose is this one indicated here. Once you click, it will show you the values across the screen. So many. So in such a case, then, when you are looking for the values, we talk of the growth rate to be. So here now, when you insert the function again, that is the goal seek, then you will set up, no, not goal seek, that is data tables. You will be able to identify now our values in rows instead of columns, and it will still give you the same solution. So how you work this. So then the next one is two-way. So in this data that you've copied, we are going to add another row between 3 and 4. You just right click on C, then you insert. So once you have highlighted the data, you don't select both. What you do, you select the revenue only. So, and our selection will start from here. So you start from revenue and select down the last one. Then from there, you can click on insert charts. Then you choose line chart, chart with the markers. So once you complete making the chart, now you can send this data to a new location. I always prefer that you should create the data, remove this data in a new worksheet. Select move data in new worksheet, that is in design one. Then you select OK, then OK again. So they already have this information in there. And I've seen how they you can use this to produce a project showing the patterns. So I've already run this, and I used the two methods to run. The first method is use of the formula. The second one, I used the data table, which we did compute here, the data table, and we set out those simple. So it do not leave any traces of the formula, but at least one can know whether you use the table or not. So then you have created a chart, which we said since the values given on this are in form of numbers, then you cannot compare numbers and numbers. They will not give you anything. So you have to adjust that. I think in our next lesson, we're going to discuss now about two-way, the two-way data. So today we're going to stop there. Just go and practice those we have just today.